power of silence. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for coming back on time. You are incredibly disciplined. It is very, very impressive. Thank you all very much indeed. It's now good afternoon. Only just, but it is now good afternoon, and I hope it's been a good morning so far. As we go into the afternoon session, what I wanted to do was to return the favour to some colleagues. On the stage are a number of the UK's most senior R&D and manufacturing leaders across the large formulated goods products sectors. I will introduce them by name, but then ask them to explain who they really are and what they do. This is a fantastic opportunity for me to put them on the spot, because for the last couple of years, they've put me on the spot. Because these are the people who have been providing the guidance and the input necessary for me and the team to design, develop, and build the facility you're in, the capabilities you're about to see. So they have put me on the hook of enabling you. I'm now putting them on the hook to help us all understand why these are the choices, why we've got to where we are today, and why we should be excited about the future of the formulated product sector in the UK. So I'll simply introduce the names of the panelists and then ask a question. So from left, I have Paul Stott. Could you maybe explain your role, please, Paul?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Stott. I'm Vice President of Global Product Development at AstraZeneca. So I lead a group of about 350 formulators, analysts, and engineers, based here in the UK, some in Sweden, some in China, some in the US. And we're accountable for the design, development, approval, and ongoing technical support of all of AstraZeneca's new products, so all of our small molecule new products. And I've been involved in the centre for, feels like, I think about 7 or 8 years now, a long time right from the start. So it's fantastic to be here and to see how far it's come in in recent years. Superb.
No Williams.
Thanks, Graham. So I'm a Director of R&D at Procter & Gamble, where I've been for the past many years, 29 plus. And before that, I was in the pharmaceutical industry at Beecham Pharmaceutical, which has long since been sucked into, oblivion, actually. Despite the fact you can still buy Beecham's powders. My responsibility is for innovation capability. So the hat I'm wearing at the moment is to do with how do we get our infrastructures for modeling, for digital innovation, and for analytical measurement to support our formulated products industries. I'm a PhD organic chemist, and actually before this role I've spent practically all of my time in formulated products. I've worked on every version of every laundry and cleaning product that we sell.
Fariba Kusha.
I'm a pharmacist by training, and interestingly, I joined Beecham. I've just really realized that you've been there, but yes, about 28 years ago, I've stayed with the same company, but the company has changed around me. But I've stayed in formulation all the way through. Currently responsible for developing new chemical entities, pharmaceuticals, from candidate selection all the way to market and commercial products. So all the new pharmaceuticals going through the GSK portfolio. So I'm really pleased to be here.
Mr. Green.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Delighted to be here. I do very much feel like I'm in the spotlight at the moment with the with the lighting. So I work for Pfizer, based in Sandwich in Kent. We have a group of about 800 people down there, about half of whom are scientists working within the pharmaceutical science group. And again, we're sort of focused on small molecules, traditional organic chemistry, and the translation of that into medicines from research through to commercialization. So it involves a variety of dosage forms, capsules, tablets, injections, liquids, and we're also interested in more advanced therapies and targeted nanoparticles as well.
Thank you very much. Emma McLeod.
Hi, sorry. Is this one on? Hi, I'm Emma McLeod. I work for Mondelez International, which is a global snack foods business. For those who don't know it, I joined Cadbury a very long time ago, and I'm based at Bourneville. We have our global research centre for chocolate, and we have brands such as Milka, Cadbury, Oreo, things like Toblerone across the world. So depending on what region you come from, you'll know our chocolates by different names, but we are a global snack foods business. I'm the most senior technical person in the research and development team at Bourneville, and I looked particularly at modelling and simulation, how we're going to stop ourselves doing so many trials all around the predictive work that we've been hearing this morning. And I'm also looking at how in our factories we apply Industry 4.0 to use, again, predictive modelling in that environment as well. So we have, as I say, a big team based at Bourneville, but we also have a research organisation down in Reading, Reading Scientific Services Limited, that some of you may have heard of as well.
Thank you so much. This is Rebecca Yates, everyone.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Yates. I'm the research manager at BP for Fuels and Lubricants, where I've worked for the last 15 years. Previously, I've led our car and bike new product development globally. The research team are responsible for the pipeline of future products, so new base oils, new additives, prototyping future formulations, and we integrate modelling and experimental within one team in our approach. Pleased to be here.
Thank you very much. And John.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I'm just about able to talk today. I couldn't talk yesterday, so I'm struggling a little bit, so excuse me. I work for Syngenta, and for those who don't know Syngenta, it's a global leading agribusiness. We sell crop protection products and chemicals and biocontrols, and we also sell seeds. I head up the Formulation Technology Group. We've got our core group down at Gellets Hill, which is our main R&D site for Syngenta in the UK. And I've also got a couple of satellite teams as well in Greensboro, North Carolina, and also in Basel, just outside of Basel. The remit of my team is very much around product differentiation. It's how do we take not only let's get the quote right, metastable, complex stuff, but it's also how we take that material and actually make a difference in terms of how we sell that to the grower and to the market. So looking at improved performance and looking at grower benefits or grower convenience. So my group is very much focused on 5 to 10 years to market. It's very much focused on the radical innovation which Graham explained earlier.
So just for awareness, the reason I've asked them to do name, rank, and serial numbers, I'm expecting them to be buttonholed by most of the people in this room over the rest of the day. Because if you ever wanted direct access to senior thought leaders and decision makers and leaders in the UK's big industry, these are they. So thank you very much in advance. See, they didn't know that. I would like to ask you all a question to maybe expand upon. And I would like to come to Richard Nema first, with the specific reason that Richard Nema very kindly came and spoke at the formal groundbreaking of this building just a little over a year ago. You were here, you said some very nice words. For that, I'm grateful. But you also set challenges to me and to the team. I'm wondering if I could maybe have you expand on those thoughts, what you thought the challenges were then, what you've seen since. Richard.
Okay, thanks, Graham. I was trying to remember what I said a year ago, I think. Hopefully other people have forgotten as well, I think. But no, I'm delighted to be back. I suppose I first got involved in the NFC probably just over 2 years ago, when I think a number of workshops were sort of being laid out to really identify industry needs. And we made a choice at that time within Pfizer that we wanted to be involved within that. And we were lucky within Pfizer and pharma, we have access to and a lot of resources and so on. But there's also way more ideas and projects and technologies that we'd like to be moving forward than we actually have the resources to do. But we made a choice to sort of get involved in the National Formulation Centre, really because the vision for where it was going, it was aligned with where we were going within pharmaceutical sciences within Pfizer, around an interest in predictive sciences, drug delivery, advanced manufacturing, and advanced materials, and so on. So I think we sort of committed at that point to get involved. We joined the sort of steering committee and started work on scoping out a couple of specific projects. So I was here again about 15 months ago, and it was fantastic progress that had been made then, I think, to establish some of the laboratories and capabilities and start moving those projects forward. And it's fantastic again to be back 15 months later, where again the specific projects we're involved in are predictive modelling, moving forward and looking at designing nanoparticles to support cancer treatments in terms of a sort of manufacturing technology that could be applied to advanced therapeutics and so on as well. So I think from our side, it's the alignment with the strategy of the NFC, but I do have to sort of congratulate the team of really putting it into practice as well. It's fantastic to see so many people here. It's great to see the sort of diversity of the companies and the SMEs and the academics represented. I think that also, it shows the interest in what the NFC is doing, but it also leaves challenges because the sort of diversity of what people want. But I think the NFC has led a really good path to sort of balance the needs of all of those groups and sort of lay out a platform, I think, to really move us forward. I suppose one of the major advantages for us from this is the cross-sector nature of it. We sort of collaborate with a number of our sort of pharmaceutical colleagues through other means, either one-on-one or through other consortia. But I think whilst we all sort of make very diverse products, we sort of go about it in a very similar way. And so that's one of the sort of major advantages, I think, for us getting involved in the NFC.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Emma, how's it felt for you?
So in a similar way to has just been described, we're obviously here because we believe that the cross-sector join-up is valuable to us. What I said when I was here, whenever it was, I think it was 15 months ago or so, was I was trying to represent the food industry, and I quoted some statistics then. I can give you some slightly updated statistics from the Food and Drink Federation, but 90% of total manufacturing turnover in the UK is from the food and drink sector, so not all obviously processed, but a significant amount of it is. And we're employing 400,000 people, so it's a really big sector and we do need help. The problem is, of the sector, 97% of the companies in the sector are SMEs, so there's an awful lot of small players. We're a low value product, so we don't have huge R&D budgets, and therefore our biggest challenge really is just getting the scale to do anything. So collaboration with the other companies that are represented here is vital to us. So in terms of the UK government, they set us huge challenges as well. So you're all well aware when you eat stuff that there's been a driver on things like salt, there's been a driver on things like fat reduction. Our latest one is sugar, and the UK government have set up the most ambitious sugar reduction targets anywhere in the world for the food manufacturers. So in terms of formulation and trying to reduce sugar, that's a big challenge for us. Sugar is not only a sweetener, it's in many products it's structural, so you can't just remove it and put a sweetener in because it doesn't perform in the same way. So there's some big challenges for the industry generally, and obviously we need to see the formulations that we develop and how we adapt those to impact health particularly. So obviously this linking with this is vital to us to make sure that we can get the scale we need to look at and get the access to the facilities we need. So in terms of what we've done as a business, we have been involved in the liquid rig that's at Birmingham that you saw on the video, and we have been doing other work here, so we are finding it useful, and yeah, it's lovely to see the buildings. But I think, as somebody said earlier, it's not just the buildings that I'm appreciating. It's the people who have the foresight to get the funding and get the equipment, and most importantly, the experienced people that we perceive that are here. And that's what I see as a real benefit to what's been done, as the skills that have been recruited here are really key to making this a success.
Thank you so much indeed. Thank you very much. I'm going to switch gears slightly, because you might think, oh, he's planted those two because they said very nice things. Well, I did. But now I want to turn it on its head. And I'd like to come to John, because John's story is ever so slightly different. John and Syngenta are not on my industry steering group. They're not. But I have asked him to speak. because John was involved and was aware of some of the very early conversations, but chose not to play at that time. And I wanted to know why, and I wanted to know why he then comes up more regularly now than just about anybody else I know. So, John, could you possibly expand?
Okay, so I've got the power, haven't I? But I've also got the plastic chair, you notice.
He hasn't paid for the comfy seats. You have to pay for the premium seats.
And I guess depending on what I say now, I might not even get dinner or lunch. So, but Graham's right. So, you know, I said earlier that my group is very much around. Someone's nearly here.
I think.
My group is around developing new technology, so looking at differentiating our products. And as a group, we are externally focused. You know, at the moment, we have probably around 18, 20 projects which are linked to academics, in the UK and outside the UK, but also technology groups as well, and also SMEs. So we are a progressive group in terms of how we do our research, but when the notion of a national formulation centre, it was quite a few years ago now actually, Graham, came on, you know, we're actually quite interested as a group. I was certainly interested in terms of what could that centre do for Syngenta and for the formulation group. Now we were engaged with the discussions, but I'm going to be completely open. I wasn't convinced. I wasn't convinced that a physical centre outside, you know, maybe outside of the academic arena, was really the solution that we needed as a company to drive our innovation pipeline. You know, it didn't feel quite right. So that time, we made a conscious decision to take a watching brief and see how it developed. Again, I'll be honest, I didn't think it would go anywhere. I thought it might just sit in the ground as an idea. It wouldn't get funding. That said, Graham and I connected about 6 months ago. At that point, I was quite eager because I knew that something was going to be built, and obviously some of these guys were involved as well. So I was kind of keen to understand a bit more around what the NFC could do and how the CPI is powering that. And certainly in the discussions I've had with Graham and the team, I can really now start to see how, in combination with CPI and the catapult funding, it's really starting to drive some of the things that we can also link into from Syngenta's point of view as well, in terms of some of the opportunities. I think there's a couple of key points for me on that one. I think the first one for me is the physical building itself. You know, actually coming here, you know, when it was a lot of your kit was kind of spread around in boxes and in different parts, but actually seeing some of the process kit, seeing some of the high throughput technology, seeing a lot of the characterization techniques available here, all in one site, was phenomenal. I didn't realise that it would have that breadth of capability. But that's not all, is it? You know, we can do that anyway. I think that the other aspect, which I think is really important, is the people on board here as well, in terms of bringing the right skills from different industries into the same physical space, which can then start to work on problems. And for me, it's not about those grand challenge problems that you know, we've been gnarling over for the last 20, 30 years. It's really about taking challenges which we as an industry need in the next few years to deliver in the market to keep our business going. And I think this group here, certainly working with my team, I think that's a great opportunity. The second aspect, and this is something I think has been missing from a kind of a UK base, is how we bring together cross-sector industry. I've struggled with that in the past. It's really hard to go and knock on the door of Unilever or BP and say, "Can we talk about something? What's the topic? We want to control release. Are you interested?" Well, not really, because we're doing this. So having that basis in which we can start to have a discussion around some common challenges. And let's be clear, not every challenge is going to be aligned, but there will be challenges that my group have got, which will be aligned to another industry. So for example, we will be looking at trying to create metastable systems. But in terms of delivery, we also, we'll be looking at how do we deliver something to a plant leaf surface? How do we get it to stick? How do we get to change the kinetics of uptake, diffusion, plasticization. I'm sure in other industries that can be aligned, and there'll be some common analogies to some of the problems they face, or maybe some of the things that they try and avoid as well. So for me, that's really an exciting area. So I guess I've come from that watching brief position to a position where we've actively started to look at where Syngenta can be part of this story as well, part of this journey. And, you know, it's still early days, but I think some of the discussions we had so far are very positive in terms of how we can start to engage further with the NFC. So I think it's a great asset here. I think it's going to power UK formulation science and growth. And yeah, congratulations to Graham and the team for making it happen. It's a really good job.
Thank you very much. Thank you much, John. That's excellent. Thank you. I didn't plant that. I didn't know that's what he was going to say. I was taking an educated guess that he might say something like that. And I'm taking another risk because I'm coming over to Paul Stott. And the reason I'm taking a risk isn't because he hasn't been engaged, isn't because he doesn't believe in the projects. He absolutely does. But Paul was there right at the beginning. And I mean right at the beginning. And that means many years ago. And I think I want a dose of reality to the room on, look, understand that changing the world doesn't happen overnight. And there is that matter of the right moment in time. So, Paul, am I right in thinking you could talk about that, about how long you've been involved in this conversation?
Yeah, I can't quite say how long, because I can't quite remember how long it was. But I remember I was talking to Jim Bullock, who's around somewhere. We spent many years, trips down to London to the Royal Society, talking about, I think we called it a special interest group at the start. And then we had this idea of a national formulation centre. And my reflection on this is actually what we've spent a lot of time going through there was learning about each sector. And John's just mentioned it there about the power is about learning and understanding and taking knowledge from each sector. But actually what I think we were doing in those many years really where we, to my mind, didn't make huge progress and now we've really ramped up. It was understanding the challenge and things like, you know, we'd have discussions between, say, Procter & Gamble and AstraZeneca saying, oh, you know, we get a new excipient, we'll change the product, the consumer products on the market then is different 6 months later than it was today. Where in pharma, it's, we'll design a product, it has to be robust. Once we register that on the market, there's almost nothing you can do for 10 years. That product is fixed, largely fixed. The regulatory burden of changing that is fixed. So whilst the science is the same, the context and the industry and the market is very, very different. So I think it's actually necessary to go through those phases, although I did get a little bit frustrated at times, but to learn and understand as this group and then as the wider group, what are we actually talking about and where does the science intersect and where does the context and the regulations mean that actually you're just talking about a very different system. But if I may, just to comment on what I've seen today, I think it's superb to have gone through those, whatever it was, 8 years of this, you know, building up this thought process and this idea, to see 3 really fantastic examples and projects that certainly myself as a leader in AstraZeneca can learn from them all. So I thought Andy's system there with Stream, superb example of innovation and entrepreneurial thinking, but actually from a pharma perspective, some of the sorts of entities that Andy's trying to make will be the same sort of entities that we're using to deliver our new drugs to particular points of the cell, on a cell. So the knowledge there and the connection there and the knowledge that you guys will hold within the centre is incredibly powerful for the whole community and the whole ecosystem. So likewise, stability of liquid systems, testing stability, but also using those microfluidic systems to produce those sorts of dispersed systems. Yep. So that learning is going to be incredibly powerful over the years. So I think it's just a real joy to be part of it and after this time, but a real, you know, kudos to you guys for making it all happen in the last few years.
Thank you very much. You're being very nice to us, and I didn't pay anybody. I'm going to come to Fariba next, if that's okay. Fariba is the newest member of the industry steering group, but is also the oldest, in that Fariba, in a previous role, was part of the group who started off conversations, and then as happens in industry, your job changes. You change role every 18 months, every 3 years, whatever your company's cycle is. And I've just timed it right, such that the wheel's gone round a full circle now, and Fariba has returned to this space. What have you seen, Fariba, as you come back with fresh eyes?
So it's just incredibly exciting because, as you say, I was involved in a brainstorming or workshop that we held, I believe it was 2014 or 2015 at GSK Stevenage, with a number of colleagues and representatives from CPI, when we went through thinking about how would we use a facility like this, and what would be the advantages for GSK, how would we collaborate to make this happen. And actually, as I was looking back at my notes, and there were about 4 or 5 pages of ideas that we came up with, of areas that we would really benefit from collaborations and would be of interest to us. Interestingly, one of those was actually the stability of the lipid system. So it's incredibly encouraging to actually see that that idea has now come to fruition, and we can really see the benefits coming along. And now coming back to this role, I can see many opportunities beyond even what we discussed initially. As has been mentioned before, within industry, it's very difficult to introduce new platforms. For us in pharmaceuticals, introducing a new platform is always associated with a number of risks and the level of investment required, and also the regulatory concerns and hurdles that we have to go through. So a facility like this and the expertise within the people and the group here, I believe should really enable us to work collaboratively and actually get new platforms in place and get regulators on board and really show that the level of risks and concerns can be discharged very easily and enable us to move forward to new platforms that we need, particularly in terms of personalized medicine, new ways of delivering products to help our patients, and really helping that speed up the process of getting products to patients, which is key for all of us. In addition, it's the learning from other sectors, because formulation is, as we mentioned, is across all other products that we use, and there are many learnings that we can have from each other. So a really good opportunity. Very excited to be here. Thank you.
Much indeed. The final panelist I want to come to is Fiona Williams, and she did give me permission to put her on the spot slightly, because I'm going to ask you the hard question. You're getting the really hard question, which is, or based on the fact that everybody in this room thinks that you work for a really big company, a really big American company. You know what? They're fat, dumb, and happy. Money falling out their pockets. Every time they bend over, another $5 falls out their back pocket. They are so rich, such big wallets, and all you have to do is smile, and they just open the wallet to you. That might not be true, Fiona. So I wonder, could you possibly talk to this notion that says what needs to be true for a large corporate that perceives or is perceived to have large pockets to come and work here and be successful here? What has to be true, Fiona?
Well, I mean, it is true that Procter & Gamble, invest 2.4% of their revenues into R&D. So I mean, that's out there, and for a $65 billion company, there's a lot of dosh. But actually, it's not so much for me about the money. It's more about the skills that I need. Over the past years, what has happened in our industry is we've moved from more internal research and development to a much, much larger proportion of external R&D development. And the reason we've done that is because we need to have those, collaborations and skills to supplement the work that we can do based on the knowledge that, I described at the beginning. I'm an organic chemist, right? My era in P&G, we hired many organic chemists, right? We didn't hire any data scientists, for example. Increasingly we're looking, for more external partnerships, and I think it's been said before, uniting with different partners behind a common problem statement enables you to have different angles to tackle the problem. But it's not just partnerships with academic and other, big, deep-pocketed companies. We've learned a lot from working with, the SMEs and the smaller companies. It's not just one-way traffic. The difficulty of being a big company is, unfortunately, you get stuck in, let's just say, slowness. And one of the aspects that, we've been able to learn through collaborations with SMEs through the Chariot program is the whole view on agility, risk-taking, and faster decision-makings, which has been really enlightening and energizing for us. I do want to take a slightly different tack here and talk about the value of the industry steering group. As we know, the government announced last year, I think it was the year before now, that they were putting 4.7 billion into industry to help us drive our productivity up and our innovation outcomes faster and bigger. We have the wave 3 of the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, calling for open expressions of interest now. If we reflect back and we look at what wave 1 and wave 2 gave to the chemistry industries, actually it wasn't a lot, right? In fact, there were some, successful prosperity partnerships with EPSRC, but in big terms, there was no sector deals that benefited, our industries. And I think coming back to the point that you made on food, Emma, we're a hugely fragmented industry. So even though, as Nigel said at the beginning, the value of, the sector is bigger than the automotive or the aero industries, we just don't show up like that. We show up as many different parties. Coming back to the industry steering group, I'm actually a member of the Chemistry Growth Partnership, which is, if you like, the Chemistry Council of the UK, and we are working on getting a sector deal for the chemistries industry into government. And, where the value is for me is how do we use this group to collect together, how do we put a vision together? How do we show up such that we can present this voice to government, such that when they are looking to say which projects do they want to sponsor, which deals do they want to get behind, we've got some united vision. And, Graham, you've been very helpful for this, and I saw Steve Fletcher somewhere earlier from the KTN, who's leading the effort to put together a formulation roadmap that will enable us to put this vision together that then we can use in our communication with the government. So this forum for me is an excellent place for us to have these conversations about what's important for us moving forwards, and how do we draw out some common themes so that we can show up in a united way.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for that. I have one last question. I wanted to change tack slightly because we've focused there on kind of the construct and the needs of building a formulation centre, the value of cross-sector collaboration. It's echoed by everyone. I wanted in the final discussion piece to ask Rebecca specifically about her passion and desire on the Microsar project and why she was so personally involved in that. Because whilst I get fantastic thought leadership from my group, with Rebecca in particular, I actually got detailed hands-on guidance on this one. But what that tells me is she really, skin in the game, right? She really cares. If this is that important, you'll not do other things to do this instead? I must be, maybe I'm missing something, so I hope we didn't miss something.
So I guess
before I get into that, I echo a lot of the comments today, especially I think John Carroll when he said that we often understate the science and the challenge in formulated products. And so I think from the formulated products organisation in BP, we're really pleased to see that if we bring together the industry and if we bring together all of the applications of formulated products, we can increase that profile. And so that's really welcome. The collaboration and open innovation is nothing new. We've all been doing it for a long time. It can be challenging to kind of get over the hump of collaborating with companies who are in adjacent sectors. So I think the CPI have been critical in enabling that. And then I think personally one of the things that I'm really excited about in the MicroStar project and some of the other projects that you've seen today is that actually we've gone beyond talking about strategic themes and the CPI have got into actually helping us work together to deliver projects. And many of those projects actually have very practical end solutions. So MicroStar is ambitious. It's a new application of a well-known microfluidic technique, but a new application. And it is ambitious, but its end goal is, as you saw, is a practical solution. It's a stability screener on a chip that would be applicable, hopefully, to all complex liquid products. So I think that's one of the things that I've really welcomed seeing. And I guess the last thing I say about why I was a part of kind of driving that particular project to happen. So stability sounds like a very simple performance parameter compared to many of the other performance parameters that I'm sure everybody's products have to meet. Speaking for lubricants, they've got to be durable under the extreme conditions in an engine over the lifetime of the vehicles and equipment. But it can be a real barrier to innovation because it can take so long to understand the specific root causes of any instabilities and how that's going to influence through the supply chain globally, in use. And as I say, then it becomes a bit of a barrier to innovation and prototyping formulation. So hopefully we'll get there.
Thank you very much. I'll come along the line very quickly, just for sort of 30 seconds on hopes for the future. Rebecca, you're still holding the mic. No, holding the mic. So hopes and thoughts for the future. What are you hoping for? What are you hoping the future is going to look like?
So I think hoping to see the skills and some specific capabilities, specific platforms. I think we're seeing the start of that already with the high throughput equipment and the robotics and the sophisticated process analytics. I think hoping to see more of that and delivery of projects so that actually it becomes a natural place for people to come to when they think of taking on a high-risk challenge.
Super, thank you. John?
Yeah, I think for me it's around how we take, how we bring together the adjacencies in terms of product design. So not just thinking about the formulation chemistry, the product in the bottle, but also the way in which it's applied, the packaging, the digitization in terms of how we provide that as well. So it's about bringing all the sectors together to make a big change.
Super, thanks. Packaging and digitization as well as the product included. Emma?
I suppose it's very similar for all of us, just to see us working together more. The National Formulation Centre helping us get funding for things I think would be helpful, and really to concentrate on the things that the processes that we have that are very, very similar.
Super, thank you. Richard?
I suppose for us, ultimately, it's about the impact. What's the impact that this has? So we're starting to see some sort of metrics of numbers of projects. It's great to hear the case studies around the success stories associated with that. What does that do to speed up development, enable new products, start up new companies, create jobs, maintain jobs going forward? So more success stories.
Super. Delivering on the promises made. Thank you. Fariba.
So very much echo all of that, but also as a training ground, linking the academia to equipment, to the platform, to end product. And I think this facility brings that opportunity to actually bring hands-on experience for the new scientists in formulation areas.
Thank you very much. Fiona?
I would like to see, I still see chemistry regarded externally as an old-fashioned science. You know, we talked about round-bottom flasks and test tubes and all the rest of it. I don't see that the chemists in future, you know, will be using those kind of skills. We need to get into the digital era. We need to get using data science. So, you know, the whole business of how we skill up, I think, is important, and I see that that's one of your pillars. So how do you help us do that? The other thing, which is perhaps slightly more off the wall, is you know, increasingly, I think, you know, capture of knowledge is going to be what's important, maybe even more important than having assets. So how do we, you know, how can this not just be the building, but how can it be the center that kind of Uberizes all of, you know, assets out there, be it in the other 4 centers that Nigel mentioned at the beginning or in some of your other catapults, and becomes the centralization of knowledge and learning, as well as the place where you can come and actually do the experimentation.
The words digitization and connectivity continue to resound with us all. Thank you. Paul, to draw us to close.
Yeah, so I'm really hoping that the second wave of projects don't take as long as the first wave of projects to get started. So that's my hope. And on a serious point, though, I think it's those projects that are the lifeblood. They're the things that will affect all these changes that people have talked about: the training, the knowledge, the visibility, all those sorts of things. So, and in some ways, and we've talked about this, the content of the projects, whether they're relevant to me or not, is less important so much as the act of doing those projects and learning from each other. And actually, after that project started, like the liquid stability one, to see that actually that is relevant to me and I could pull out elements of that in. So that's the lifeblood of the centre, and I think it's just building that momentum, and it will become self-fulfilling over time, that flow of projects will almost seed the next project, and it'll become self-sustaining.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed. Could you join me in thanking all of our speakers today? Thank you.